Hey guys, first off, a shout out to Big Blue United and Big Blue Wrecking Crew, two awesome Giants Facebook pages that both had great posts and coverage throughout this Giant draft. So kudos to everyone involved there. Coming up on the Big Blue State of Mind, Episode 2, we recap the draft for the Giants as well as some other teams that we think rated very well in the draft. Please like us on Facebook and share any way you can to help us grow this thing. All right, without further ado, Episode 2 starts now. The New York Giants have moved closer to being an NFC East favorite. That was the headline by Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post last night after the draft concluded. Gettleman and company addressed that need of an edge rusher, added a dynamic wide receiver, amassed depth in the offensive and defensive backfields, but never addressed the need at offensive line. A line ranked second worst by PFF in 2020. With me today, Eric and John. How you doing, boys?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm back to I'm definitely off the wagon after the stress of the last 3 days. Thanks to my wife and kids for letting me use the TV a little bit. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Shout out to Marcy as well for that. Thank you.
Because I don't think I've ever been so much into a draft as I was this weekend. How about you?
No, definitely exciting times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made sure I was in front of the computer and the TV. Basically took over my living room. So, again, my poor girlfriend, same as you guys, ended up going out for a nice big steak dinner last night to celebrate the completion of the draft. And hey, thank you for letting me take over the living room for the weekend.
But she is one that wears a Cowboys jersey. So is she interested in the draft?
You know, it's
Not
funny.
really?
At one point, she did walk in as Dallas was picking, and she got into it a little bit. But I think she's more of a fan when the season starts. She's not really into the offseason.
Really?
So she doesn't know much about Micah Parsons?
She knows nothing. Besides the fact that I wanted him.
Well, the good thing about her being a Cowboys fan is that at least, she's free every Sunday in January.
Hey.
So
What she's also well aware of is the fact that Dallas traded their pick to the other NFC East team, which we'll get into. But she was very happy to hear that it potentially upset some Giants fans.
absolutely. All right, I am going the bourbon route today. I have a little bit of Bullet bourbon. Eric, what are you drinking?
Today I have a beer from the Bronx Brewery, the Boogie Down, and it is titled "Now Yous Can't Leave." So for you gentlemen this evening, yous can't leave this basement until we get done talking about this draft.
We might be here a long time, I'll tell you.
And just one other thing from the movie A Bronx Tale, this quote was, "Believe nothing that you hear and only half of what you see." And I think that goes to this NFL draft and the Giants picks as we get further into it.
Wow.
That's deep.
It is deep. Too much to think about right now. John, what are you drinking?
So I doubled down on other half. I love the brewery and happen to have a lot of it in the fridge. So this is a double dry hopped Citra from other half. So cheers to other half.
Cheers. You were right with the Ojulari pick. I mean, you were about a round and a half too early for it, but you were right on that. So stick with the brewery. I think it might.
Cheers to you.
Hey,
so
cheers.
cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Welcome to week 2. All right, I want to just go through the first round of the draft. We're just going to go through the picks. There's not a lot of surprises early on, but it was a very active draft. It was probably one of the most entertaining ones I've ever seen. I don't normally stay up that late. The trade back kind of
Trader Dave.
yeah, the trade back got me a little bit confused or surprised, but definitely a lot to talk about. So all right, so no surprises at 1 and 2. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, two just terrible franchises that need to get their shit together. Number 3, San Fran, the first kind of surprise, they went with Trey Lance. Looking at this, I've seen a lot. So a lot of people thought that they were taking Mac Jones. And I heard a great thing. It was Colin Cowherd. It's like, why are you going to trade up to that spot for Mac Jones? And, they put themselves in a position with, run Jimmy G into the ground and get this guy Trey Lance a few years of experience or, understudy, whatever, and see what this kid can do. Alabama quarterbacks don't normally do that great. I mean, they have a better team in college than they do in the pros, so we're going to see what happens there. But, yeah, that was the first surprise.
Just going into that is I don't know if the Niners knew when they traded up to that spot, but I think they wanted to be in that spot because they didn't know.
I
and
agree.
They had a month of, and no matter what the media says and what the reports are, there's smoke screens out there all the time. I think they just wanted to be the team that had the option as opposed to the team that was behind it and then falling into place.
I think they knew they were going to get a good quarterback because there were 5 of them. And you're right. I think that maybe they were even thinking Mac Jones, and then the farther along they got and the more digging they did. I mean, Trey Lance is a heck of a player. He just played at a smaller school, hasn't played many games the last couple of years. I feel like he has a low floor, but he probably also has one of the biggest ceilings in the draft.
He still can't even have a legal drink. That's how young he is.
Yeah, absolutely. At the 4 spot, Kyle Pitts, no surprise going to Atlanta. That could be a very interesting team this year. Matt Ryan is a very solid quarterback. Everybody forgets that he was an MVP one year. And you still got Julio Jones. They've got some weapons.
Calvin Ridley.
He's got some weapons out there. They could make a little bit of a move. I'm not saying they're going to be a huge threat in the NFC, but I think they'll be very well improved, especially if they give Ryan some time. So
and when they call Pitts a tight end, I mean, really, he's a receiver as well as tight end. And I mean,
he's not a great blocker.
When he goes for his next contract, he's going to want to be considered a receiver because the money will be on the receiver side, not the tight end side.
Yeah, I mean, he's a matchup nightmare, but when he's in, he's not going to be that Gronkowski type of blocker. Not to say he's a terrible blocker, but he's not. That's not one of his strengths. It's definitely pass catching. First wide receiver off the board was Jamar Chase. Again, not too big of a surprise. Some people had Penei Sewell going to Cincinnati.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, that was a little bit of
Joe Burrow got his way on that one.
Yeah, I mean that exactly. That's the first time I've ever seen 3 quarterbacks get their old college receivers back, and it'll be fun to see all those guys. See if the magic continues. Let's see. Now we got the Dolphins trading up from the Eagles. Jalen Waddle. This is the guy that I picked. I thought he was going to stick around. I thought that Smith was going to go first and that Waddle would be there at that 11th spot. Now I didn't want a wide receiver. I predicted it because I thought that's what the Giants would do, but I really wanted O-line. I really wanted Slater.
And Slater was there.
But I really like what Miami did. They moved from 3 down to 12, got back up to 6, and they were in the catbird seat. They still had on their board who their guys were. They were all still there. They could have gone line. They could have gone Sewell. They had the 2 receivers there. Moving down 3 spots, back up and really giving nothing away and gaining assets, and then still being in a spot where they could pick the person that they wanted. I mean, I really thought that was a smart move by them. Another continued smart move by them.
I thought it was a great pick. I really did. You're giving Miami is a much improved team. I don't know if Tua is a dynamic quarterback. He just got a dynamic player. So that's the dynamic. The word dynamic was thrown around so much in this draft. I'm going to use it like 20 times today just to give you a heads up. That's going to be my word of the day, dynamic. So take a shot if you're out there. Have a sip of your beer, whatever. Every time I say dynamic, you got to drink. Let's see. The Detroit Lions took Penei Sewell as expected. I got a little bit excited when he go to Cincinnati or Miami, and I thought maybe that he'd be there for us because he's definitely the best lineman in the draft.
And again, Detroit was another spot. They had options.
Yeah.
Well, according to the media reports, they had options. I mean, there was talk about them trading down, but they also need that offensive line. And could they really pass up Sewell, not knowing what they would have wherever they traded down to? It just the way this draft fell was so exciting as to you really didn't know after number 2 really what the picks were going to be. Maybe Pitts at 4, that had been kind of set in motion, but it was really exciting not knowing what legitimately that next pick was going to be, or was there going to be a trade?
Well, Jared Goff's got to be happy because they just brought him in a quarterback and they just got him a great left tackle. So now he's got some protection.
But they don't have any wide receivers. That's why I said I honest to God thought that's where Devontae Smith was going to go.
But at least he's not going to be flat on his back every play, which is nice when you're new with the team. All right, the best pick of the first round up to this point, J.C. Horn going to Carolina, and then Patrick Surtain going to Denver.
Don't you love how that prevented Dallas from getting their guy?
That was the best part of the first round for me.
Really wanted to close up on Jerry Jones' face. Well, the post-surgery face of how he reacted after those 2 cornerbacks went off the board when there really wasn't an expectation that
back-to-back right in front of him.
Yeah.
Now, did that give him the trigger to just say, screw the Giants? And
absolutely.
That was
if one of those 2 guys were there, especially a Surtain, that's the pick right there.
I don't know.
Trade up. Devontae Smith's still on the board.
Why would you ever do business with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Especially when you don't have a secondary. You literally just lost D-backs, and now you're letting Philadelphia take one of the top wide receivers in the draft.
But also, going back to 8 and 9, again, those were 2 places that those teams potentially were looking at trades because of what they had done in the offseason and what they needed, or drafting quarterbacks, and they didn't. Neither of those things happened, and it set off just this next 4 to 5 picks of just confusion and excitement for teams, and fans are like, what's going on? It's just, again, another pick after another pick that just set a chain of events in motion.
And honest
Now-
to God, when Philadelphia traded up to take Devontae Smith, you saw the Giants clock. It was just everybody was picking, in the first 4 or 5 minutes of their allotted time. And you look at the Giants clock, on the clock, 2 minutes left. I think we were all texting each other like, I think they're trying to trade out. I think Gettleman is so like
He had his
disheveled.
so
Like,
confused,
what is
right.
going on right now?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier today because, it just really pissed me off, that whole trade. But then I thought about it. I said, listen, look at what the Giants got for that trade from the Bears. Okay, that's the one thing that I really like. We got the first round next year. We got a 5th round and a 4th round.
We got a 4th next year and the 1st next year. The 5th they used this year to
5th they
move
used-
back
right.
up.
Yeah.
So it
All right,
was,
so we got a ton for our trade down. What did the Cowboys really get?
Can I just say one thing about the Cowboys trade, and we'll probably never know because I don't think either of the teams, the Cowboys or Giants, will talk about it. Did the Cowboys call the Giants, call Gettleman and say, the Eagles are looking to move up in front of you. What do you have for me? And did the Giants, 1, say we don't care, or 2, they weren't willing to give up what the Eagles were?
Did the Bears call did the Bears call the Cowboys and offer them that same thing?
If they did,
Did
and the
they
Cow-
offer
if
him
they
anything?
did, and the Cowboys didn't take that deal, and they took the Eagles,
Well, why would the Bears are looking to trade up? Why would they pick the Giants instead of the Cowboys? Did they offer something to the Cowboys?
They probably knew that Dallas wasn't going to be taking a quarterback anyway, so maybe let it get 1 pick farther, and you can give up a little
Little
less
bit
because the
less, yeah,
movement
that
is
could
1
be.
less pick.
Right. Or they found out, or the Cowboys said, "Hey, who are you going to pick?" And they said, "Well, we're taking a quarterback." And they knew they were going to take a quarterback, and they said, "No, if we're going to trade, we're going to trade so we can screw the Giants because we know the Giants want Smith."
well, I also could flip that around and say the Bears might not even been involved in that, and the Giants might have done the outreach because once they had those 2 quarterbacks on the board, they had their guys off the board that they were no longer available. Did the Cowboys start reaching out to, even if I don't want to say it, the Washington football team, the Bears, those 17 to 21 teams, and say, hey, there's 2 quarterbacks up there who want? And did they even call the Patriots? And the Patriots like, we're good.
Also, Dallas might not have been willing to go all the way back to 20, so they might not have even been interested in trading with the Bears at that point.
Then maybe they didn't think. Maybe they had Parsons as their next guy, and they didn't think he was going to be at 20.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is I think when it was all happening and we saw, and even when the Giants made their pick, I think we all were kind of like, I don't know, But if they had made their 1st and 2nd round pick opposite, so say they had taken the edge rusher Ojulari, who I had wanted them to take anyway at 20.
Congratulations on that pick
Thank
last
you.
week.
And say we had taken Tony in the 2nd round, everybody would have been like, this is phenomenal. Well, those 2 players are on our team, and we got all those draft picks. So I think when you look at it after day 2, you're like, wow, we got the players we wanted, and now we have extra draft capital for next year, and it worked out well. But I think when it happened, I was one saying I think Tony was taken a little early. Why didn't we go edge there? But when you see
Look at
after
big
the
board,
fact,
yeah.
looking backwards, you're like, you know what, it worked out.
And also for his Gettleman, how much did Joe Judge have involvement in this? Because this almost seems like a Patriot move. He learned from Belichick, and Belichick always was the trade down guy. And Gettleman had never been previously Trader Dave.
And then he does it 2
in
times
this
in a
draft,
row.
he did it. So how much influence does Judge have in that room now?
I think we got a little too excited with the trade. He did it a little bit too much, in my opinion. We'll get to that later, but
It's all part of the new process.
yeah, I guess so. So the Philadelphia Eagles take Devontae Smith. My honest opinion, since our last podcast, I've been that dork that's watching videotape and stuff like that on potential prospects and stuff like that. I really do think he's too small. If they took him, I'd be very, very weary. 170 pounds. That's very small. He doesn't have that kind of tough fighter up. He's going to be a slot receiver. Are you going to put that 1st round into a slot receiver? I know what he did. I know he's made all the catches. I know that he's potentially a new Deshaun Jackson for him, who just completely destroyed the Giants on many occasions. And the Cowboys just gave him to him. So, he's going against the Cowboys 2 games a week, too. So the Cowboys must not think much of him either.
Like I said, and the Cowboys don't have a secondary. At least we do.
I fell more in
Yeah.
love with him in the last week.
Yeah.
I just when that pick came off the board, I
fell more in love with Waddle, which
But
yeah.
he at that point he wasn't
there, right.
an option. So once Smith was 1 pick away, and I was like, well, the Cowboys aren't taking a receiver, which you never really know what the Cowboys are doing. Hence the trade that they made.
Mhm.
But after their receivers they've taken the last couple of years, they signed Cooper. I'm like, well, Smith is definitely going to be there. What do the Giants do at that point? And then it all went away.
Yeah, so we're gonna see. Time will tell about Devontae Smith. I'm honestly happy we didn't get him, but with the way the trade went, I'm happy with how he traded down and what we got out of it. So the future looks good because of that trade. We'll get to that pick in a few minutes. Chicago Bears, they took Justin Fields. Good luck. Chicago is allergic to good quartwerbacks.
Same as the Jets. It's like the two teams' quarterbacks go to die.
It's terrible. I feel bad. I mean, I've tweeted Sarah Spain a couple times, like on her feed, and commented on a couple of her things, and she actually responded to one of my posts. I put something about a quarterback, and she said, "Yeah, we're allergic to good quarterbacks in Chicago." So their fans even know that, every time they've had anybody decent, it just doesn't go well for them. That's a defensive town, and they just live on their defense. So. And they have a good defense, so maybe they can turn that around.
That being said, though, I mean, they did end up with potentially what could have been a third overall pick as in the 11 hole, which, you never know. I hope, for our sake, I hope he has a really bad rookie year because that means we'll get a nicer Chicago pick next year.
Yeah, that would be very nice if we get a top 5 or top 10 pick.
I think long term he could be a decent quarterback. Again, the system, who the heck knows, but maybe Nagy will get something out of him.
And I give credit to Pace for not having nightmares of the Trubisky debacle and them trading up and giving him away picks and really doing the same thing again. I give him credit for being gutsy. I mean,
watch Mac Jones turns into the next Tom Brady, and they're saying, "What did we do?"
Well, it was the Mahomes Trubisky. I don't think Mac Jones can be Mahomes, but kind of that. You could have had this player, you took that player, and really. Hopefully it works out for him.
All right, the instant comparisons to Dwayne Haskins. Is it fair to just handicap a quarterback just because of the school they went to and the past performers there?
Well, I don't think it's just Haskins. It goes back to Cardale Jones, to Troy Smith.
Yeah.
But I think size-wise, I think that's why they're bringing up Haskins because they are both larger quarterbacks with big arms. But I do think that Haskins' mobility was way less than Fields, and that's probably one of the areas where under Nagy, I think he can run some of the more stuff he wants with the RPOs, with the run pass. And really getting Montgomery and Allen Robinson. I like Fields. I don't know if I would have given up what they did, but
I think regardless, he might have a good career, but he's going to struggle in his first year. A lot of rookie quarterbacks do. He's also a guy that runs. He's kind of like, almost like a Daniel Jones type, right? He can run, but I don't think he's a very good passer when he's on the run. Mm-hmm. So he runs out of necessity, and that's how you get young quarterbacks hurt. So
they got the red rifle in the pocket just for the start.
They sure do.
I'm actually surprised that he didn't do better in Dallas last year. I mean, with the weapons there, with Zeke, and I was really surprised. I said, "Oh well, they do have Dalton." I didn't think that they would be as bad as they were. But
I thought the same thing. I said the same thing. I'm like, when Dak went down, I was like, they have a very viable back. That's why they had that backup quarterback. And I think there was some injury stuff with him as well. But I'm not a Cowboy fan, but I was disappointed in his play for them with the weapons that they had.
But we were happy to see it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So moving on to the Cowboys, I don't know if there was one player walking down that hallway during the draft that I was more intimidated by. I was like, I walked him down, and you even said that is a bad man. Like we were texting back and forth, and yeah, he is. He is very intimidating. Sean Lee retired this week. And I think Jerry Jones not getting those two cornerbacks immediately said, well, we got this guy. And I think it was a great pick for him. And it's a better pick for us because they didn't address their big needs. They didn't really need a linebacker. They got some strong linebackers with Van Der Esch, and I don't think that was the number one need. So similar to the Giants, they didn't address their number one need in that first round where there was guys out there that they could have done or traded back for. And cornerback was the biggest one they need. Cornerback and offensive line. Dallas's line was ranked 27th in the PFF.
I think they're
People don't realize.
I think they are hoping that was injury related and COVID related, because the year before, I mean, Zeke was running, in big holes because of that same offensive line. And it has changed over, the last year or so. But I think they're hoping beyond hope that line gets back to what it was. But there were other deficiencies. I give credit to Jerry Jones. He didn't go offensive for an offensive skill position
honestly,
player.
It was a smart move, at least. They addressed the defense, which is where their deficiencies were last year. I don't think there was another D-back worthy of the number 12 pick. So I think what they did was probably right. You weren't getting a defensive tackle worthy of that pick. The edge rushers, we've talked about it at length, in the last show. I don't think there were edge rushers. So at that point, I think you're stuck either trading back or taking the best defender on the board, which I think is Parsons. So.
And I don't think it's in Jones' DNA to keep trading back because I think the potential was there for him to trade back maybe again.
No, I think he was happy. I think he knew he'd get Parsons there. I think he saw Sean Lee, and he's not looking at the big picture. He saw a guy like Sean Lee, who was a great linebacker for a long time, and he said, hey, I can get another great linebacker and just fill that spot. And because he couldn't get those 2 cornerbacks, he didn't. And again, they went 5 picks without an offensive guy in Dallas.
You almost wonder if he fell asleep and somebody else was doing the draft for them.
They completely ignored that offensive line again. So Dak's got weapons. They're trying to bolster their defense because their defense was terrible as well.
Well, maybe they were saying, all right, we'll address offensive line as soon as the Giants address offensive line.
That's got to be the worst stalemate in the history of life. Oh, my God. All right, so moving on. The Chargers got my guy, Rashawn Slater. I am very upset about that. This is the guy that we needed to draft. I'm going to say this 10 times. This is the guy we needed to draft. Offensive tackle, can play guard. This is the Zach Martin of the draft. This is what the Giants need. The Giants have Matt Pert and Andrew Thomas and an older Nate Solder. We need a guy that can fill that role.
So let me ask you this, Kev.
Yeah.
Right? So would you prefer what we have right now with Tony in the first round and next year's Chicago first round pick as well as our first pick, or would you rather have taken Slater?
Well, looking how the draft panned out, I would rather have Slater, knowing that Ojulari is still there in the second. That we address our first 2 needs. I would rather have that.
Because doing that trade in that first round, you also didn't anticipate they weren't going to take a lineman, an offensive lineman. You didn't. When that happened, you didn't anticipate the rest of the draft was going to play out the way it did.
Absolutely. But as it went on, I was not. My reaction when we posted it, when you saw that post where everybody, the Giants fans were like, "Who? What about the Tony?" Yeah, I mean, I've heard about him. He wasn't one of the top 4 guys that we've all been reading about and talking about for the last couple of weeks. Okay, when you watch him on tape, it's great. But guess what? And I was going to wait to get to this point when he gets there. But he has only played for 1 year. 1 year of Division I football, full season. He had injury problems. He's a guy, he's a slot. We are also, we have 4 guys right now, or he'd be the 4th guy in our lineup right now. So he's developmental. He's not going to walk in and start day one.
I think he's going to be a gadget play guy for
he's
the first
year. He's a gadget play
probably
guy.
A return guy.
It also makes me think that I'm telling you, I don't know what their plans for Shepard are, and they don't actually know how
Listen, and
Shepard was going to be on the field because in the past couple of years he's been very unavailable more than he's been available.
And I get it. He's not. Shepard has injury problems, and we have all these guys have injury problems, and we're looking for depth in a backfield. But you just got Galladay. You just picked a John Ross, who could be another guy that, who's got a high ceiling. Okay, when we talk about that whole thing, this was a big risk. I know that. Urban Meyer wanted this guy, and there's all that thing. Guess what? Urban Meyer's never been a head coach. Urban Meyer wants him because he's scouting high school players, and the guy's got great talent and all this other stuff.
And Urban Meyer will sign you if you have a good 40 time. It doesn't matter.
Right. This kid, I saw this kid, and let me tell you, I was very impressed. There's one little, I think I sent you guys the little video, the highlight video. There's a little slip screen where he has that first step faster than I've ever seen anybody hit that hole, which is awesome. Now, Jason Garrett's going to be up to the task to work him into the offense. There was one Giants game, I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, first game of the season, and went out, and it was probably the most creative I've ever seen Jason Garrett use Dak, use read options, use some little gadget plays, the whole thing, and the Giants were on their heels the entire game. I was like, wow, I've never seen Jason Garrett. Now, when you watch the Cowboys the next week, and he didn't do any of that, and that's the thing with Jason Garrett. He's not consistent in any of his play calling, and sometimes he looks like a genius. Sometimes he looks like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So it's going to be a challenge to him to get this kid into the lineup, keep everybody happy with balls, and get that offense going. But again, none of it's for good if we don't have a lineman. Rashawn Slater is that guy that I would love. I want a competitive, deep offensive line, and we don't have that right now. We've got
drafting Tony helped that because he can catch quick passes where you don't need as much time as you do maybe throwing down the field to Galladay.
That's fine, but there's points where we have to throw the ball down the field, and if he doesn't have 3 seconds to throw, it doesn't matter. So I mean, we're looking at depth. Why do we need depth at wide receiver when we don't? The first thing we should have depth at is offensive line. You want 5 good starters and 1 or 2 guys that can fill in those holes in back of them and move guys around. You need guys like that, and we don't have that right now.
There's a thought process amongst executives in the league is sometimes you don't worry as much about your deficiencies and you explode on your positives. And I think the
Giants,
Giants,
offensive line is not what you should do there.
and I think that happened with the Giants when they went defensive back and they went receiver in this draft. Is they say we have two of the better situations going, and we're just going to keep piling on assets.
And well, I think the assumption too was that the Giants were still going to address the offensive line. The problem now, as we're looking back at it, is I would have been great with the Tony pick and then the Ojulari pick had they addressed offensive line in the 3rd round, the 4th round, instead of trading away the 5th round pick.
Do you know
and
how
the
we
5th
addressed
round.
it? We addressed it with Zach Fulton, who led the league at sacks allowed at 10. He allowed 10 sacks last year. Okay, we had a rookie center who actually did well in the second half. He didn't allow any sacks. That's a highlight. That's one of the better things I could say about our offensive line. Our left guard, Will Hernandez, who's underperformed. Shane Lemieux. I mean, Shane Lemieux did great run blocking, but guess what? We need him to pass block, and so far he looks lost. Andrew Thomas, Matt Pert, let's see, we're in their 2nd year. I'm not going to knock those guys, but they are projects. We've been through projects before.
There was also, though, a list of guys that would have came in and been a day 1 starter at the right guard position or left guard position that were still available in the 3rd and 4th round. I'm not so much upset with the trade and the Tony pick. I'm more upset with the fact that they did not address, because we could you would have probably felt better with the Tony pick had we gotten one of the the kid out of Ohio State at guard or the kid out of Tennessee. There were plenty of guys that could have been day 1
and
starters.
they went between 42 and 50. Those guys were taken between the Ojulari pick though. So do we go that way, or I think the Tennessee kid was taken like 46 and the other kid was taken in the 40s as well. But going back to Slater, I agree. I love Slater.
Mm-hmm.
Is now San Diego have what you were hoping the Giants have with Jones and Slater. Now they have.
Yeah, you know what they did? The first thing they
now
did.
They have it in San Diego.
Yeah, they got in San Diego, and that was what, that's a team that's on the rise.
It really is.
They did a very good job. Now, the next pick, the New York Jets, okay? Jets got their quarterback. They got Vera Tucker, offensive guard from USC. So last year, getting Mecca Burton, or is that his name? McBurton? Mackay, right?
Mackey.
Mekhi, okay. And now Vera Tucker. So you've got a quarterback, you've got a guard and a tackle protecting him. All right, that's a very good start.
That was aggressive by them to move up too.
It was.
They didn't sit back. And again, they took Vera Tucker, and I was still more of a dare shot. We'll get to him when he comes up. But the way that they jumped up and took him, it was surprising.
I think we were thinking that the Giants would take him at 20 if he was still available. But as the picks were coming, and even before the Jets took him, I said there's no way he's getting to 20. And the Jets took him.
But there were 2 offensive linemen there, and you're like, well, one of them probably has to fall at 20, which one of them did, and they still didn't go that direction because Darisaw didn't get taken by Minnesota until after that, right?
Right. Yeah, Darisaw was down a little bit. So, all right. So moving on a little bit, we got to speed this up a little bit in this point. The Patriots, Mac Jones. Let's see. We'll see. I mean, it's a Bama quarterback. We're gonna find out what happens. The Cardinals, Zaven Collins.
A little early, in my opinion.
Little early, yes, I
Solid
agree.
player.
The Raiders, Leatherwood, way early.
Bro.
Way early.
Just blasted out by everybody.
And then it's like, you know what? They did it again. They took the guy they wanted. They didn't care what anybody else thought about it being too early. But that's what the Raiders do.
It was like the Clean Farrell pick when they had 3 draft picks a couple of years ago, and they took 3 guys that people were, other than Jacobs, people are like, what are you doing?
By far the coolest name in the first round, but that's all I can say about him. All right, now, the second guy I wanted, okay, and I was hoping it was going to fall to the 20 spot, Jalen Phillips. Miami, again, I think Miami did very well this draft.
He didn't have to travel far, huh?
Didn't have to travel far.
What do you?
Yeah, I mean, how about Phillips and Russo on that same team? I mean, that was wow.
But he didn't play this year, right?
I know, but still,
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
couple of talents from the
Yeah.
same
Oh,
position
yeah.
and same guy. Holy cow!
Yeah.
I'm big on Jalen Phillips. I think he's gonna have a great career. I really wish he stuck around a little bit.
So play that out though. If he's there, do you think the Giants take him, or this whole draft still falls the same way it does for the Giants? Because I don't think they take him.
I don't think they take him. I think their mind was because listen, if we're gonna take Jalen Phillips, you would have taken Kwity Paye. I think
if they're both there at that.
if they're
spot,
both there at
and
that
they're
same
not taking a
spot,
receiver.
right? And Kwity Paye was there for the Giants. So, Washington football team takes Jamin Davis. This is a guy I didn't want. I don't want those
Also
hybrid.
early.
Yeah,
Early.
also early, and he's another guy that was a linebacker safety hybrid type thing. I don't.
Sorry, he played football at Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
And I'm surprised more that, and I don't know, maybe they did try to trade up, or maybe they're scarred from Haskins. But I think that was a team that with Fitzpatrick there now, and I know they got Heineken, but weren't they looking to move into one of those quarterback positions where they could potentially work on somebody? Maybe they didn't think about it. I don't know.
Or maybe they figure the NFC East is getting better and they'll have a top pick next year.
Well, I mean, we'll get into it, but is Ryan Fitzpatrick the best quarterback on any of those teams in the NFC East right now?
Well, I've said it over and over again. Washington football team at this point is one good quarterback, not even great, a good quarterback away from being a great team. I think
Aaron Rodgers, possibly?
I think they are right on that borderline.
Maybe they know something we don't.
Listen, it's not a joke. That team is on the verge, and I'm surprised they didn't try to get a quarterback in this round or trade for one. Okay, Giants, I'm going to just let you guys talk about Kadarius Toney for a couple minutes because I'm pissed off because I don't want him.
The thing about Toney is when you would see highlights of Pitts, Toney was in every one of those highlights of running, and you're like, who's that guy running as fast as Pitts or running routes? Or Pitts was actually, they did show, even though he's not a great blocker, they showed sometimes he was blocking downfield, and it was typically Toney just running past people. So I think that really excited executives as far as putting him on the radar. And if you look at
hey, Forrest Gump was fast too. Tell me about his NFL
He
career.
succeeded at Alabama.
He was an All-American. but I mean, in reality, if you looked at where most of the experts had Toney going, he was in that 20 to 25 range. He really was. So it's not he wasn't that far above where a lot of the experts were having him pegged anyway. And again, they picked up during that process. They picked up all these additional assets. And this year is a make-or-break year for both Gettleman and for Jones. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, those assets could be handy next year when they potentially need to move up in a draft to get a quarterback or to get something else that they want. So to get Toney and the assets, I still think it's a very positive thing.
Yeah, and another thing that I think Toney has going for him, first of all, he's an easy guy for Gettleman to fall in love with. Gettleman's the kind of guy that shows up at a Senior Bowl and sees like 2 or 3 plays, and he's like, yep, that's all I needed to see. Kid could stick his foot in the ground and make a cut. I like it. But he also has hands. He had 3 collegiate drops in his career, and I know he wasn't a significant piece of the offense until his senior year, but he had 123 catchable passes thrown to him and only 3 drops. We were talking about how frustrating it is to watch Evan Ingram. If he can translate that to the NFL, now the big knock on him is that he's not a polished route runner, which you need to be in the NFL. So hopefully that's something that they can teach him up. But in terms of raw ability and I mean, they literally call him the human joystick because, we watched his tape.
Yeah, I mean, his moves are ridiculous.
But you know what? Even if he's on the field and other teams see him and he doesn't get a catch or he's not in on that play, is he taking away from defensive
he needs to be in motion every single play because
and just making people move around. Yeah, I think that's a benefit right there.
Again, I think the challenge is going to be to Jason Garrett to get him involved in every play and read option. I mean, we know that Daniel Jones can run the read option. That's the play that he fell on his face. It was an 80-yard read option that he took. Now if
most quarterbacks wouldn't have been in that spot to fall on their face. So.
Right, but the point being that he can do that. Okay, so
one more thing that I really like about him is if you watch his tape at least, he has a lot of really good contact balance. So he gets hit and he uses his hand in the grass to be his third leg, and he stays up on contact and will keep going. And I've seen a lot of that. A lot of plays where he's getting hit. He's using his arms to keep him up, and he sometimes takes it to the house. So,
can you imagine actually flaring Barkley out into a slot position and putting Toney in the backfield and just watching a defense going?
There's
what's
a lot.
Going on
listen,
here?
There's a lot of possibilities there, as long as the line can give them time. With those gadget plays, you need some blockers for them too. I mean, they don't just if you just let guys through, those gadget plays don't work. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Now we do have good run blockers, so that's where things could get interesting, but I mean, if we want Daniel Jones to progress, and when you're running gadget plays and all that other stuff, that's great when you have a lead. You don't come from behind running the option, and that's a fact. When you go down to even high school football, they're tough offenses they're ball control offenses, and you don't come from behind when it comes to that. All right, so next play, here we go. That +1. Who did they? If you had a team and the next guy was on your team, I've seen some articles like written this way, Kwity Paye. I loved Kwity Paye. He went to the Colts. This is a guy that I wanted at the edge. Now, hindsight, Ojulari is probably a better fit because I wanted that outside linebacker, that LT type. I'm not saying he's LT, but he's that outside linebacker that can blitz, that can drop back. He can do a little more. He's more polished. Kwity Paye is a great story. I love that story. You know, when he got up there and he said, "Yeah, this is my mom's last day of work. My mom's not working anymore." You know what I mean? It's just a great story. This guy is driven. He's hungry. I think he's going to be a star in the NFL, and I really wish he was part of our team.
And I just think the Colts are smart with their draft picks. They really are. I mean,
Yeah, they have a very good
Darius,
organization.
Darius Leonard, Quentin Nelson. They just draft, and it might have been Kwity Paye. They draft the best guy at that time at that position that they need, and it's worked out well for them over the years. And I just think they're a very smart organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to speed ahead a little bit to Buffalo. Greg Rousseau. Buffalo got their whole team back. They added a good defensive end, an edge. They're going to be tough. I'll tell you right now. They are a growing team. Hats off to Buffalo. You guys break a lot of tables. Your fan base is out of their mind. I know a friend of mine right now that through work, you know, listen, God bless you guys. I think you're climbing the ladder of most annoying fan bases right now, because you think that you've won it all just by being in an AFC championship, but you're not far away from getting to that big game. I'll tell you what, I was very impressed with that pick and what you guys are doing.
I think they one, played Kansas City, so they know what they need,
Yeah.
and two, they saw Tampa Bay get after Tom Brady, and they know they need somebody to get after quarterbacks, both Mahomes and Tom Brady. So I think that was a good pick by them. Just jumping back real quick, and this is something we're talking about of teams that we think drafted well. But I think Minnesota did really well with that first-round draft pick. I think they traded.
Darisaw.
They traded down also, got some value, got some stuff for the future, and still got a player that I think they had targeted.
Yeah, Darisaw was a very good
And
pick.
that was
Sorry,
the guy
I
I
didn't
wanted
mean to
to-
speed by that one.
No,
but
that's fine. I just think that was somebody who I was if the Giants, if it had fallen differently, I really thought the Giants could use him too.
Right. The last pick I want to talk about in the first round was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this really reminds me of the Giants of the 2000s, where we had edge rushers and we kept drafting more and more edge rushers.
Well, they literally brought everybody back, so
Yeah.
they didn't really have a need. They just won the Super Bowl.
They didn't, but they
So-
got Joseph Tryon from Washington, another edge, which I think is a brilliant
Agreed.
move.
And it scared the shit out of me because I saw now we're looking at 7 rounds in, but the night of, we sat for hours and hour, half a day before the next, or more than half a day before second round started. So you see DN. It's like, oh shoot, here comes a run on DNs. Is it going to start again in the top of the second round? And if so, there's no way we'll have a chance at getting our guy.
Yeah, it was definitely a crazy night. I had mixed feelings about the whole thing. Listen, what we got for that pick and trading down, I'm not going to complain about. We're going to see what happens. The time will tell.
Should be a top 10 pick next year.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
be serious.
And when I saw the Tampa Bay pick, I actually thought differently. I thought similar but differently. I thought more of, if we're going to do anything and we win possibly the division, we're probably going to go through Tampa at some point, and there's just another guy with an offensive line we might not address that's going to be rushing our quarterback. They're just going to keep rotating those guys in. So I thought differently as far as that's another guy that's coming after Daniel Jones.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you're building a team, you got to look at it. How do we win a championship? And you have to protect your quarterback. And that's one thing that they did so well in that Super Bowl was they rushed Mahomes better than I've seen anybody. I don't care how good you are. And you look at Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson threw how many touchdown passes last year? I mean, a lot.
You can see,
and that's why when people say like, oh well, 45 sacks. Yeah. Well, Russell Wilson got sacked 50 something times, and he still threw 38 touchdowns. And he's not. He's complaining now. Yeah. But the point is, you can still make plays. You can still do the whole thing. But you got to protect your quarterback. Can you imagine what he would have done if he had time?
Can
you
see
have any idea?
You can see how one draft affects things though, because they got Wirfs and we got Thomas.
Yeah.
And just flipping it 1 year, even if it didn't work out, we didn't make the playoffs last year. If we had Wirfs going into this year,
We would feel a lot better.
there's no talk about offensive line as a need,
Or you hope so.
or
You hope that's what it
or
is.
less
Right.
or less of a need.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so round 2, I'm just going to do the highlight of the NFC teams or things that really popped out at me. All right, Philadelphia got Landon Dickerson from Alabama.
I like that pick. I kind of wanted him.
Yeah.
It would have been a good center guard combo. Could play either position.
That's
I had him. I had him as one of the
right.
potential
That's
targets,
the
too.
type of position that I thought we should have targeted. It sucks that he went that early.
I mean, he definitely has injury history, and I think I don't know where the Giants have him on the board, but the injury history definitely has to play. He tore his ACL like 3 times already. He's missed, but he started 37 games and tore his ACL 3 times. The guy's like bionic. He really is.
Yeah. Let's see. The Cowboys took cornerback Kelvin Joseph. Okay, so they did get their cornerback that they were looking for in round 2. Any input on that? I mean, Kentucky's never, a school that jumps out at you when you think football.
Yeah,
Although their team the last couple of years has actually been very competitive, and they are recruiting much better players than they have in the past.
I know. As I'm making fun of their linebacker in the first round.
Yeah,
well,
right.
you said that, and I do go back to they were undefeated for a little while the last couple of years, and they actually have played very competitively in SEC games. And again, I think the Cowboys knew they had a need, and it was the best D-back at that time.
I actually saw the Kentucky play 2 years ago. I was down visiting in Charlotte, and we had tickets to go to a Vanderbilt game, and they were playing Kentucky. So I, at the time, got to see all these guys. They did have a strong defense that day, but I'm pretty sure Vanderbilt was like the cellar dweller of the SEC at
They're
that
the
point.
Ivy League team of
Yeah.
the SEC.
Right. 47, Los Angeles Chargers, Asante Samuel Jr. Did you see his dad pissed off?
What is
His
that?
dad put some stuff out that Aaron Rodgers kind of stole the spotlight, and instead of talking about his son, like all this other stuff.
But
because-
another great pick by the Chargers. I mean,
Another great pick for the Chargers, yeah.
they just keep building that.
Yeah.
And if Derwin James, not to get on the Chargers rant, but if Derwin James actually comes back healthy for that defense, that NFC West, whew, that division can be loaded.
Now, hanging out right around there, actually, the next pick. This is just what I heard. This was a rumor that somehow, I don't know if it was legit or not,
Oh, I wanted Aaron Banks.
but Gettleman was in love with Aaron Banks, and the thought was that he traded back and was going
To try to get Aaron Banks. Oh.
And then he gets sniped 2 picks ahead of us by the Niners. Nice pick. But then I think at that point, Gettleman just said, you know what?
But is that a trade
Well,
back
you know,
where
maybe-
he has a
maybe-
couple guys? He
Yeah,
has a
would-
couple guys in his crosshairs,
Yeah.
and he's going to get one of them.
Yeah, well, would you rather have... Okay, another thing, Rondell Moore went right at that 49 spot. So that was another guy that I liked out of Purdue that I kept seeing guys pop up as early second-round guys.
He's a small guy. He's 5'7". If you're talking,
Well, we're talking about a slot guy,
He's
right?
a burner, too, though.
Yeah,
But
if
he's a
we're-
burner, right?
Yeah, but height-wise, I mean, that's
Okay, but I'm saying that if you took that, one of those
flip-flop-
other two
flip-flop
needs that
him,
we
yeah,
wanted,
flip-flop him, yeah.
and he was available, and
Yep.
you were adamant on getting a receiver, you could have done that.
Well, he
as
would have been
right?
available at 42.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, Aaron Banks. I was kind of hoping that he was going to slip down at that point. We got Aziz, but at that point, I think I texted you guys both. I'm like Aziz. If they don't, I actually jumped out of my chair and like screamed because I was so happy.
You were
that
like,
he-
John got it right.
John got it right.
Yeah, not even John got it right, but Gettleman got it right. That what I mean? Like that's a position we have to fill. We have the pressure up the middle. You got to come from the outside because I don't care. And we have 43 defensive backs right now on our roster. 43, I think. I counted them, okay?
Out of the 60-man roster.
Yes, we have 43, okay? We have way too many. I don't like some of these other picks. We have too many defensive backs. You're wrong, John, because you say we don't. It's not a need. You keep stocking up on these things other than Lawrence.
I don't think we
Max-
needed a third round. I was hoping a little later that we would get
Yeah,
a serviceable.
well, you put it as one
you
of our
gave us
top
your
needs
first,
last
yeah,
week.
you did say
You
it was
did.
filling their top
but I
3
did
needs.
say it wasn't even close to 1A or 1B.
Okay.
Ugh,
Hedging your
Jesus.
bet. Okay.
Hedging your
Hey,
bet.
go
Here we
back
go.
and
Right.
listen.
Right.
Yeah,
doesn't
no.
mean you're all
Right, just
good.
because Ojulari. Now you've
But
now you can
again,
hedge.
you flip this and you just all right. Someone tells you after the end of day 2, the Giants picked up Aziz Ojulari
Mhm.
and Tony
And
in the
draft
first
picks.
2 rounds, and they got
Applause.
a number 1 draft pick from Chicago, and they got a number the number 5 for this year,
And they
and the
got a
number
1 and
4
4
for next year.
Yep.
Listen,
If you didn't know the order they were drafted in, you would have been pretty happy, I think, with that.
the fact that Ojulari fell from a top 20 pick all the way to 50, yes, it worked out great. I'm not complaining, but we didn't know that was going to happen.
And the
Okay.
and the injury
Correct.
stuff that they're talking about, it's nothing that's actually happened on the field. He has not missed games. It's
Right.
something that came up in the medicals that he has potentially
Potential arthritis,
in
yeah.
his
Right.
knees. So how that plays out, you know what? If he gets him 4 good years as a second-round pick and they traded down and whatever, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. What was the defensive end
Better get more than
a
4
few
good
years
Well,
ago
4
out
good
of
years for a
Texas
second
A&M that never made it? I'm trying to think of what his name
for
was.
what?
He was an edge guy out of Texas A&M. He was on the roster for like 2 seasons, and then I think they just cut him. I forget who. But anyway,
Ooh, right.
hopefully at the very least you get more than that out of him because it sounds like potential knee concern, but
Listen.
talented,
I'm expecting a
talented.
lot out of Aziz. I think again, everything I've seen about him, I think he's very polished. He can do a lot. He can drop back. He can do a lot. So we needed that kind of threat on both ends. You know what I mean? So okay, Washington football team, offensive tackle Samuel Cosme from my boys, the Texas Longhorns. They needed some line help too, so that was a good pick by them. I can't say anything bad about that pick. I'm not going to really go anything else in the Tampa Bay did get a quarterback in the last pick with Kyle Trask. So,
Good
when
pick.
ti-
He'll
when-
sit behind Brady for a while.
well, I mean, hopefully Brady retires before he does.
But again, it
At
goes
this
to
point.
show they drafted a defensive end, they drafted a quarterback. It's nice to be the Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
It really is. It's nice to win the Super Bowl and have a team
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah, you're just
that's what the Giants
yeah.
are hoping. I mean, that's honestly as Giant fans, that's what we're hoping to get to is get to the Super Bowl, and you don't have to fill immediate needs. You can look at the future.
So, okay. Now we get into the third round.
And that started a little run on the quarterback because they were the first pick in the
It
third
did. You
round.
got David
was-
Mills. You're right.
Yeah.
And my favorite quarterback
Kellen
in the draft,
Mond.
Kellen Mond, because I think he'll be starting for Minnesota at some point. I think he's the next Dak, actually.
I think anybody can start at Minnesota if you get the way they've rotated quarterbacks.
But I mean, I honestly think I don't know. At some point, they're going to decide. They paid Cousins because they didn't have any other
Yeah.
options. But
Yeah, Kellen Mond.
I do see Mond as a potential new and updated Dak.
Right.
I'm just going to put that on record now.
Okay. Noted. All right. So 71st pick, we got cornerback Aaron Robinson.
Yeah, give me your take on this one, Kev, because I know that you weren't happy with that trade up.
I'm not. We traded up 6 spots. We gave up that draft pick.
The 5th round that we didn't have that we traded for and got, and then we just gave it away again.
I mean, you're playing with house money. I
But
get
you
it.
are playing with Fremont, yeah.
Right. I do get it.
No, I agree. I wanted that 5th round pick
Yeah.
because we could have used it on something like an offensive lineman.
All right. Well, if you're going to trade that pick, again, we're strong at cornerback, man. We are so strong at cornerback. Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, Peppers, Ryan, Holmes, Julian Love plays corner. Holmes is a slot corner. McKinney's your backup safety. Ryan Peppers, Isaac Yardum. I mean, there's so much depth already at our cornerback position. I don't think you needed to do it. We got another one later. I think that was the spot to get another cornerback. I don't think that was necessary at that point.
The flip side is look at the team. Just looking at the teams in the division, look at the teams that are loaded with receivers. Now that Philly drafted Devontae Smith, Washington picked up, I believe, Curtis Samuel in the offseason. These teams are loading up on receivers and they're loading up on playmakers. Is it that the Giants really are saying, let's go with our strength? Let's reinforce our strength because that way, if there is an injury, we're not falling behind the rest of the team.
He also has, I think, what Joe Judge looks for in a player, and it's that positional flexibility that he always talks about. So here's a guy, he played the slot in college, but I think it was more out of he was very good at recognizing routes and had a quick first step to be able to jump and explode on those routes. But he's an outside guy also. He's also a guy that loves to play downhill and loves contact. So he's also a guy that can be a safety and can play in the box if you need him to. So I think the fact that he does all of these things and the fact that he can be a special team superstar until he breaks the starting lineup, we don't want to put him on special teams anymore. Again, I think 3rd round's a little early to be addressing anybody that you're considering as a special teams guy.
So you
But
agree
that
with me?
positional flexibility, I think, is probably what.
Going to your thing, Kevin, about
Yeah.
those changing you were talking about changing from 3-4 to 4-3 to being hybrid. This guy loves to make tackles. This guy loves to hit. Is he somebody they drop down in the box and he's not even really a corner? He's more of just that hybrid player that's going across the field and just making plays.
We already have a bunch of those guys. A lot of those guys,
X-Man.
yeah, we do. We have those guys. I'm not saying that he's not going to contribute. It's always good to be deep. I understand that. But the point being, we have that need at an offensive line that needs to be addressed before we start stocking up on other positions.
We think that, but if the Giants don't have the grade, is it either they didn't?
How
have
are you?
the,
Are you comfortable with Zach Fulton?
But if the Giants
Are you comfortable? Yes or no?
we're going to have to be at this point.
Are you comfortable with Zach Fulton?
I would like for them to upgrade, but if they don't have a grade on an offensive lineman in that spot, I'd rather them go with the guy they have the grade on.
Why can't you just say yes or no? Are you
I said I'm
comfortable?
not comfortable. No.
Okay, no.
I'd
Well,
rather,
so you
I'd
know
rather
what?
the upgrade.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'd rather the upgrade.
So
but if they,
what
but
would
if
have
it's not
pissed
there,
everybody off was there was talk that they were considering taking him in the second round.
his grade was in the 50s.
No, I understand. Listen,
Thank God Ojulari fell to
Right.
50, because if that had
Yes.
happened, I would have
Kevin
lost
would,
my mind.
Kevin would have definitely
we
broke
wouldn't
his
have a
He would have
podcast.
broke his TV.
because listen, I would have found a
would've thrown
firearm.
him out
I don't
of
own a
house, his
firearm.
We're
TV.
shifting to a New York Mets podcast.
Listen, I would have Elvised my TV right there on the spot. All right, so this is what really grinds my gears. All right, so there's two guys that I think that we should have had, and we didn't get caught by our enemies at that point getting those. Although there's 5 picks, actually 6 picks before we even sniffed anything else. 2 guys that I think we could have traded back for. Wyatt Davis, offensive guard out of Ohio State, went to Minnesota 86. The very next pick, which is the one I really wanted, was Kendrick Green from Illinois, who can also play guard. Everything I looked up on him was he was a steal for Pittsburgh because of that versatility, and he can go in and start. He's that kind of guy.
And we were talking about Ben Cleveland as another one that
Yeah.
never made it to the 4th round.
Kendrick Green, watch out for him.
I actually saw all those reports. They were Pittsburgh media people.
They might have been, but let me tell you, I was big on him before I read those reports. So when I was looking at the top prospects and I'm kind of looking at him the whole thing, like I love the versatility. Can you play center? Can you play guard? If you can play center, you're a smart guy. Okay, so that shows me some intelligence. The whole thing. I just wanted to see more of that, and we didn't even try to get for that whole thing. And at that point, I think Gettleman just kind of gave up. He said, "Listen, I don't like any of the other linemen in this draft, and we're just gonna, take the best available."
And again, I think it's that. Look how many offensive linemen were drafted in this draft. There are going to be teams that have to release linemen right now, and Gettleman might be playing the game of there are high-priced linemen that are going to be released in the next week or two because we have to add our players in, and he might be hoping that he's going to be able to pick one of those guys up, or he already has intel that there's going to be people released. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I was also viewing. There's another guy that actually got drafted later in the 3rd round that I had a higher grade on, and that's Elijah Molden. I think if you're gonna go D-back at that point, there was a couple of other options that were. I mean, I know he fell a little farther down into the 3rd round, but I saw him being projected higher, and I've actually seen his tape, and he looks like a solid player. And it's weird because Gettleman is usually the guy that wants to take the bigger conference player, and he's a Pac-12 guy versus a guy at a UCF. The American, that league is kind of garbage. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so 4th round, I had a couple guys that were targeted. I was looking at the best available guards. I'm looking at Trey Smith from Tennessee, Deontay Brown from Alabama, Trey Hill from Georgia. Everybody's named Trey now. None of those guys went in the 4th round. They didn't go till 6th. So in hindsight, I guess nobody really graded those guys high. If I saw one of those guys go really high and the Giants didn't address it, I would be a little upset. But hindsight, I'm not. They went with Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa. I think this is a good pick. What's your take on this one, John?
When I first saw it, I actually wasn't all that impressed by it. I didn't really hear too much about this guy. He didn't play last year because his conference canceled their season. They actually had a spring season. He opted out because it was so close to the draft. So one thing that I've been doing a little bit of digging since the pick, I actually like it a lot more now that I've heard a little more about it. Guy put on 25 pounds since he last played. So he showed up at the Senior Bowl about 25 pounds heavier, jacked. He's another one of these guys that is very, very athletic, kind of raw, not a run stopper, but definitely like a 6'6" edge rusher that had put on enough muscle to be considered. I've heard that they were talks to him going in the 3rd round. We got him in the 4th round. He's an edge rusher, another need that we had. They're saying eventually they could line him up opposite Leonard Williams on the other side.
I do like doubling down on that.
Yeah.
That's so again, doing the little digging afterwards and watching some of his tape from 2019, I'm actually excited about the pick.
My only concern about that is year off and adding weight. I have concerns about leg injuries during the preseason season because you add that much weight and you haven't played and you haven't used it in physical activity as far as actually contact with players. I'm a little concerned with that, but I definitely think it's a good value pick there.
Agreed. Let's go 6th round. We got running back Gary Brightwell from Arizona. Again, our our first reaction was still no lineman, but I mean he's a big back. I guess we're looking at depth and
Only 19 catches out of the backfield, so if something did happen,
no,
to
he's a big.
Barkley-
I mean the guy's
Yeah.
like 6'3", 220 or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
I know he's 220
5'11",
pounds. 5'11",
5'11",
220.
yeah.
He's a big, bruising. They said he runs very violently. It reminds me of like an Ahmad Bradshaw. So we're gonna see what happens. I love a guy named Gary too. That's just a.
I'm thinking more Jacob style if he's that big, like just running.
Well, at
down.
5'11",
Jacobs was like 6'4".
Well, he,
Yeah,
he was
fi-
he,
fi-
that's where you
5'11",
got
5'11",
that 6'3" thing from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I heard violent, and I thought,
Yeah.
I heard 220. I thought he was bigger,
Yeah.
but if he's 5'11" and 220, he reminds me
More
of
the
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw,
So
But he doesn't catch passes like Bradshaw.
yeah,
At
but-
least, yeah. You know what? People can pick that up coming into the NFL. There are in this year less COVID restrictions. Hopefully, there are more training camps. There are more times for people to get together and actually work on some of those things. But I said this in the pre-draft one. I thought they had to go running back, but I think it was kind of late, and I don't think it was the player that they needed. Obviously,
No, I mean,
so there were other running backs on the board at that point, like Chris Evans out of Michigan. There were other guys that I think would have been better backup running backs. This guy sounds like a guy that you want on special teams. Again, once you get into the 6th round, if you want to draft guys that you're projecting to be special teamers, hey, do your thing. But I think there were other running backs that if you were going to use them as backup running backs and potential more time if Barkley goes down, this is not the guy that you want for that.
and at 201, we took our 75th cornerback at Rodarius Williams from Oklahoma State.
now the whole roster is defensive backs.
Right. You guys got anything to say about
Yeah,
that?
so actually his younger brother is Greedy Williams, who was a 2nd-round pick in 2019 to the Browns.
The funny thing is he's older. Than
He's
his
older,
younger
yeah,
brother, who
yeah,
was
yeah.
drafted 3 years ago. Yes, or 2
Now
years
his
ago.
brother was
Right.
out of LSU, so probably had a little bit better skill set. But at least good family pedigree. I mean, I don't know what else you could say about him. I mean, just some information that I was able to pull on him. I saw a couple of tapes the last couple of days as I was doing some research. But sounds like he has the ability to not really the best at press defense, but he's got good route recognition. He shows a pretty physical nature in his style of play, and he's a good tackler. Sounds to me like the traits that make up a good special teamer also. Again, they'll have him go in and compete and hopefully push the other D-backs. But, as a guy that's going to stick on the roster, he's probably, special teamer or practice teamer in my
It
eyes.
almost sounds like Gettleman's just punking people at this point, going, "We know what you want us to take. We know what not to take, and we're just going to keep going at that position over and over."
Yeah, he got so excited trading back in those first couple of rounds. He's like, "Well, I can't trade back anymore. What do I do?" So, all right, I'm done with this draft. So we're going to talk about our NFC's predictions when the schedule comes out in a couple weeks. It comes out May 12th. We're going to do our podcast a few days after. We'll figure out that Friday or Saturday. But I just want to know from you guys, what teams do you think won the draft? Like, what teams did well and really addressed their needs? And give me your grade for what you think the Giants did. What's your grade? A to F on, you don't have to go pick by pick, but just give me the overall grade.
I mean, personally, I think the first 3 picks, and again, I think it goes to John's kind of, if you reverse these picks or you don't know where they picked them and you just have players on your roster, I'm at an A-, B+. I really think, and if we're including the draft picks that they got,
Got to include him.
I think then they move up into the A- range because I don't know how good Chicago's going to be next year, and I do think that that's an asset that's going forward, and that's part of the process. If Jones isn't good this year and Gettleman didn't have a good draft and it doesn't work out, those are assets for next year's draft that we can potentially use to move up into a better spot where we need a player next year. As far as teams that I thought did well this year, I love Minnesota's picks. I love Mond. I love Darisaw, and I also like where they got them. I'm a huge Minnesota fan going forward. I think Justin Jefferson is going to continue to be a star. Thielen will continue to be his possession self.
Thielen's so solid and
Dalvin
consistent.
Cook. I mean, I really like the Minnesota, what they have going on there. And it's really bad to say, but Cleveland's done really well the last couple of years in the draft. And it's part of what I think the Giants are going towards. It's called the process, and it's done in the NBA a lot. And the Sixers have done the process. But the Browns have brought in Dee Potesta, who was a Major League Baseball executive for 20 years and started the Moneyball thing in Oakland. and he's bringing analytics to Cleveland now. And I really think a lot of their picks are being made on analytics.
All right, so let's look at their picks, okay? So number 1, Greg Newsome, 26th overall, cornerback. Ousa Karamoa
That's
from
my
Notre
guy,
Dame.
Notre Dame.
Again, he was that
We
hybrid.
wanted him in the second round if
no,
it wasn't
no.
Ojulari.
I didn't want him. I don't
No,
like.
I did.
No, I understand, but I don't like that hybrid type player. But he could fit that
For their
Cleveland defense.
Yeah.
It could be a very good pick, and it could boost their they're an already good team, you know. So and then Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver, 91. Listen, you got Beckham, who is a China doll. Okay, depth at wide receiver is always a good thing. I think they did very well in their draft, so I agree with you.
I really do, and I think it's something that the NFL is going to go towards is analytic. It's going on in other sports now, baseball, basketball. It started the analytical part, and as you were saying about Gettleman before, when he goes to the Senior Bowl and he sees a guy who makes 3 cuts and he's like, oh, that's my guy.
That's all I need to see.
Gettleman's 70. And I think that guy is aging out of the NFL, and I actually think they're aging in the process of the guys who are going to look at more of the analytics. And I think Cleveland's on the forefront. And I can't believe I'm saying Cleveland is on the forefront of like things happening.
Right.
But you know what? Joe Judge might be bringing the Giants into that era. And
Well,
I'm happy about it.
I
And
hope
I'm
so,
and I'm happy about it.
because surprisingly enough, Cleveland looks like the model of how to rebuild your
It's
organization.
literally draft day happening in real life.
It
Yeah.
really is. If they put Kevin Costner in some kind of executive role, I'm done.
Unreal. John, who do you like?
Okay, so I'm gonna actually agree with that your grade. I think A- is a fair grade if you include the picks that they picked up. And I think the way you look at it is not so much who they take first round, second round, third round, but you look at what they did as a whole, what draft picks they acquired for next year. Something that we haven't really talked about is the 2022 draft picks are right now being viewed as their gold, right? So the 2022 draft, you're going to have a full report on all of these players. Scouts are going to be out scouting again. There's hopefully going to be a combine where all the players there's just going to be so much more information. Team doctors are going to get their hands on players. So the picks we made this year were kind of like blinded, right? Some of the picks that we're making were just like, well, I cross our fingers and hope we don't have enough information. So I think next year you're going to get back into a bigger player pool, more players not opting out, playing the full season. So the fact that we picked up those picks for next year, we now have 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, 2 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks. I mean, that's a lot.
Those are assets, and I just want to
Now, for Dave Gettleman's sake, I hope he's around to do it.
But if not, the next
Hey,
GM has a treasure trove of picks.
Well, if we win 10 games, he'll be around to do it. So that's our goal this year.
So your second question, what team I think had a really great draft? I'm going to say the Jets. They went out, they got their their quarterback in the first round, Zach Wilson. We'll see what he turns out to do. But then they really addressed that offense that was literally the worst offense in football, right? They go first round, Zach Wilson. First round, Elijah Vera Tucker. So they addressed the offensive line. First pick with the second round, Elijah Moore. A lot of people projected him as a first-day wide receiver. Then they go out and take, in the fourth round, Michael Carter, running back out of North Carolina. There's a guy that a lot of people had going the second day in the third round.
And a big need for them at this point.
So they literally went offense. Then they, as you get into the fifth round, they got a couple of safeties and some D-backs, and they addressed some of the secondary in the second half of the draft. But you look at those top 4 rounds, offense, all guys projected to go sooner than they went. I think they hit a home run with the draft.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And their wide receiver room is almost as crowded as the Giants. I mean, they have a very full wide receiver room now with the pick of their second rounder there.
Almost looks like our cornerbacks. So now we go to I'm just going to just really quickly just say that
I swear, if you say C+, I'm going to slap you.
No. Oh, well, we'll start with that. Okay.
It's on video. So
I'm
let's
going.
do this.
Listen, I'm going to go with a B because
Okay.
we're going to B. If the Bears finish dead last, 0-17, we'll give them 116. Then I'll bump it up to a B+. Okay.
Because
for-
we
for
have the number
picks.
1 overall pick.
Right, but I'm going with B because we didn't address the line. I think the line is the most important part of your team aside from quarterback. So Miami went Waddle, Jalen Phillips. I mean, watch out for Miami. They're going to be a contender the next year or two. Buffalo is on the edge. They got two.
Literally by drafting edges.
Yeah, literally 2 edges in a row. And then Spencer Brown, offensive tackle, boosted their line a little bit. I mean, great 2 picks. I'm focusing on the whole AFC East because the Pats with Mac Jones, you got your Brady, Christian Barmore. You got your Will.
That's a
Really good. I was kind of hoping
Yeah.
he
Talk
might
about
fall to the
value.
Giants.
Oh
You,
my
you got your
goodness.
Will Folk. You got
how
your
do-
Will Folk right there.
Yeah, but
Okay.
how do they luck into not moving up for Mac Jones,
Yeah.
not moving up for
And
Barrymore,
getting-
and they
getting
get
those
both
two
of
guys.
those players?
Right.
It's almost
And
like
then how about
Belichick
Ron-
didn't make the playoffs, and they have
How
to
about
get those
Ronnie
picks.
Perkins? Ronnie Perkins was the guy that I
Fell to
wanted
the end
too.
of the third round.
Fell to the end of the third round. He was a guy that if we didn't get Ojulari, I was hoping for Perkins.
It's almost
So-
like the Patriots weren't blessed for the last 25
Yeah,
years.
the Patriots literally didn't trade anything. They didn't do anything. They just sat back and got 2.5 good players. We don't know about Mac Jones yet, but I would bet on those other two guys. And the last guy, San Diego. I mean, Slater, you know how I feel about that. I wanted him bad. Asante Jr., and then Josh Palmer, wide receiver, another little weapon for Herbert over there. So that's all I got, guys. You guys, anything you want to add?
Man, that was a fun weekend.
Wow,
Yeah.
that was exciting because
We
there was so many. There was just almost every pick after the second pick. It was unknown. It kept us up later after the Giants traded
Yeah.
back.
Dave
It
Gettleman
was
goes and earns himself a new
a
nickname.
new Trader
Trader Dave.
Trader Dave. Traded a little bit too much, in my opinion. But that's it. All right, guys, we will see you next week. We're going to have a couple podcasts. We're going to have some trivia coming up. We're definitely going to do our predictions, early predictions for the NFC East. And we're going to break down the whole schedule. And we're going to say who we think right now, wins and losses, because we all do this whole thing, win, loss. How do we get to 10, 11 wins? Because our goal is to make the playoffs this year. So look forward to that, guys. Please share the podcast. If you like it, tell a friend. Like our page, share our page. Anything you can do to help us grow this thing. We appreciate all your support. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
So, Kevin, right now we're on Spotify, Spreaker,
We are on iHeartRadio. We are on
YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, we got a
If you
bunch
want
of
to see
outlets.
these pretty faces, go find us on
Yeah,
YouTube.
exactly. We're going to be on all the outlets soon. There's a little waiting period for some of the other stuff. So
Go Big Blue.
thank you, guys, and we will see you next week.